Tuesday night, welcome back. A lot of you joined yesterday, and I have a feeling that we're going to have another big crowd again tonight because of this guy, Jason Poe, the talk of the town, momentum building up for the bowling ball. And, Jason Poe is one of the players that I zeroed in on right after the draft, right when the 49ers signed him. And I was like, ooh, this guy's got something special to him. And now I think that based on some of the stuff that Trent Williams is saying, based on what we're seeing in a practice, with that 53-man roster cut down right around the corner, it looks like the 49ers may believe they have a player in Jason Poe. And we're going to discuss a lot of that on the show today. So hello and welcome, everybody. First of all, some background. Today was the 49ers' final open practice of this 2022 season. Just like that, in the blink of an eye, it was about a month ago that we were all congregating here for the start of training camp. We had a lot of open practices over the course of camp. Well, camp is done, and the 49ers are now in game week preparation mode. This is the dress rehearsal against the Houston Texans on Thursday, and today was the final practice to which the media will be allowed to watch team periods, right? So actual scrimmage work and practice. So I'll be out there on the field throughout the rest of the season for warm-up, stretches, some drill stuff. But team drills, that's all closed to outsiders from here on out. And the 49ers are going to fly to Houston tomorrow after their walkthrough, which is also closed. So today I'm going to talk about the open period of practice here over the course of about the past month, what we learned, what, might continue on into the regular season, all that good stuff. Like I said, it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. And we just got done with that first leg of the marathon, training camp moving over into the dress rehearsal on Thursday. But today we are going to discuss Jason Poe and the momentum that is building for this rookie, the bowling ball, as Chris Furster, his offensive line coach, calls him. What a story. This is a piece that I wrote. I've been on this since really early in the process, June 7th, right? It's already August 23rd. So June 7th, this is what I wrote. 49ers Jason Poe vies for a roster spot with his unique versatility. If you want to read along, go ahead and check this one out in the comments section, as the link is now there. I never had seen anything like the size, speed, strength combination that Jason Poe brought to the table. And what's remarkable to me is that he had to be marketing himself right before the draft because he knew that he likely wouldn't get picked. I mean, this is a guy, here's his community, here's his career path. Hutchinson Community College, where he's a fullback in 2017. Then he transferred to very small school Lenore Ryan, where he was teammates with current Patriot safety Kyle Duggar. Duggar made the rounds the other day on social media because he just completely knocked an offensive lineman on his ass. So he had a much smaller safety from a small school. I don't even know who he knocked over, but that guy's probably not going to make a roster. It's going to be tough for him to regain his dignity after that because Duggar just blew him up. So that made the rounds on social media. That's Jason Poe's former college teammate. And then the staff, Drew Cronick was the coach of Lenore Ryan. That staff moved to Mercer, another small school. And a year later, Jason Poe transferred to Mercer, where he became a 290-pound offensive lineman. So you're talking 250-pound fullback / H-back at Hutchinson Community College. Then you're talking about a 250 to 260-pound lineman at Lenore Ryan. And then you're talking about a 290-pound lineman at Mercer. Following that, Mercer, by the way, played Alabama last year, and Jason Poe held his own against Alabama. Big reason of why the 49ers are interested in him. All those Crimson Tide guys, Poe competed there, and Poe belonged on that same field, which gave the 49ers a true indication that he belongs at the NFL level. But as you could see, 250 at fullback, 250 to 260 at Lenore Ryan, 290 at Mercer as an offensive lineman, and now over 300 pounds of the 49ers. Jason Poe has tremendous weight adaptability. I mean, we all know that it's not that hard to just put on weight, right? If you're not, careful with it. But that weight's not necessarily going to be effective weight. You just eat a bunch of junk food and you'll be okay if you just want to put on weight. But Jason Poe has been able to put on weight throughout the course of his career and stay just as strong. So he was just as effective as a 250-pound fullback at Hutchinson Community College as he was a 290-pound lineman at Mercer. And that is innate God-given ability to be an athlete at wildly fluctuating weights. In fact, his college coach, Drew Cronick, told me this guy can play and cut down to 250 if he needs to be, and he can play H-back, fullback in the NFL, no problem. That's how adaptable he is. So anyway, all this adaptability led to this. This is before the draft. This is Jason Poe doing his thing, posting on social media. What I think is awesome about this is his little hype reel that I'm going to play in a second. Look, he's tagging people. He's tagging PFF College, some guy named Ben Fennell, a CBS producer, a draft and combine. Poe is literally out there sending out job applications, and this is on April 14th, 2022. Fast forward to August 23rd, 2022, 4 months later, there are people in the press conference. It was Jake Hutchinson who asked Kyle Shanahan about Jason Poe taking some first-team reps today at practice, and Shanahan didn't want to talk too much about it. Kyle Shanahan was like, well, I'd rather the spotlight not be on Jason Poe. But then we later asked Trent Williams about it. I asked Trent Williams about Jason Poe's development, and Matt Barrows asked him a little bit more, and Trent just started glowing about Jason Poe. So we'll talk about that in a second. But let's just go to this 4-month blast from the past. Jason Poe and his demo reel ahead of the NFL draft. I'm going to put on the sound for this too.
Poe, Mercer University, interior offensive line / fullback, 300 pounds, 6'1".
I just wanted that portion where Jason Poe was introducing himself as 6'1", because you're going to hear from Trent Williams in a second. But here he is running pass patterns at 300 pounds and looking smooth while doing it. So one thing that Trent Williams said today that you're going to see in a video here in a little second is that he's never seen athleticism like this at the guard position. And if somebody like Trent Williams, who is literally athleticism personified, we've never seen athleticism like Trent Williams at the tackle position. So if Trent Williams is saying stuff like that, there's some substance to it. But I mean, this is a post from a 300-pounder. He's running a post pattern and he's catching it in his stride. Later, he did some snapping drills. This is, I guess, at Mercer on their practice field. The snapping drills are what, everybody thinks that Poe is probably going to have to play at some point in his career, center for the 49ers. But I think that he's so athletic that they're looking at him as a weapon at that guard position, especially in the run game. And we'll talk about some of the potential disadvantages that Poe has because of the shorter stature in a little bit. But first, I just wanted to highlight the crazy, crazy athleticism. All right, so now this is my question to Trent Williams about Jason Poe, and then Matt Barrows is going to follow it up with a question of his own. So sound is going to be back on. Let's listen in on Trent Williams today from the 49ers press conference.
Jason Poe coming along. He's coming along. He just continues to win his matchups, and he plays like his hair is on fire. Obviously, there's a lot to this game that he has to learn. But, I think everybody's pretty excited with the strides he's made since OTAs.
He's 6'1" and doesn't have a long arm. Well, maybe not. I mean, you know better than me. But the whole thing is, a guy with that height and that length arms isn't supposed to be able to block well, but he has. What is it that he's doing that has allowed him to kind of make up for that lack of length?
Well, you said it, the 6'1" or whatever. And he could be 6'3", who knows? Could be 5'11", we don't know. But that naturally gives him leverage. And he's explosive. He's a very quick guy. Even if you get him, he always has a chance to recover, which is, it's not common coming from an offensive guard position. Usually those guys don't have a lot of room to recover when they do have a chance to recover. But you just never really see that type of athleticism coming from the guard position. And I think that's why he's been successful, because he uses his attributes to his strength and what we may see as his weakness.
I'm sure everybody at this time of year talks about wanting to win a championship, but some of your teammates have kind of openly said that is the goal.
Trent Williams on Jason Poe. Okay, so there's a lot to digest there. First of all, Trent giving Jason Poe a hard time for being listed at 6'1". And I think that we all know that Jason Poe, I mean, you've seen the videos of him. He's not 6'1". I'm going to put him back up on the screen. Again, there's a reason why Chris Furster calls this guy the bowling ball. And I know you can't tell height relatively from that picture, but the guy's not 6'1", right? He's probably 5'11". Trent making fun of the listing. Of course, Jason Poe's going to advertise himself as a little bit taller. I mean, he was literally applying for jobs 4 months ago, and he got one from the 49ers, and now he's trying to stick. But the reason you want to portray yourself as taller as an offensive lineman is because every other old lineman in the league is at least 6'2". Most of them are 6'3" and above because pass protection, right? You want long arms to keep pass rushers at bay. Jason Poe probably being 6 feet or under. He's listed at 6'1", yes, but Trent Williams said that with a wink, wink. Since he's not that tall, that theoretically is going to be an issue for him, right? But he's found ways to work around it. He's found his own comparative advantage, despite the fact that he doesn't have that arm length, doesn't have that height that you want to see at an offensive line position. He's got quickness like we've never seen before, like Trent Williams has never seen before at the guard position. And that quickness combined with that strength means that he could win in other ways. And I think that, combined with the weight adaptability, the fact that, he could fluctuate from 250 to 290 to 300 and still be just as strong and just as effective, that makes him the Lord of leverage. Low to the ground. And I don't think the defensive linemen are used to taking on Jason Poe. I think they're all used to taking on 6'5", 6'6" guards now in this day's NFL. You get a guy that's significantly shorter than that. It's already flummoxed a lot of D linemen in the first 2 preseason games and throughout 49ers training camp. So, I mean, this is all fascinating stuff because we're at these press conferences now. Kyle Shanahan doesn't, he just gets all terse and short when somebody asks him about Poe taking a couple of first team reps. And to me, whenever a coach kind of clams up like that, doesn't want to say anything, it means that he's got a player on his hands, and you can't hide a player on your hands forever in the NFL. I today predicted that Jason Poe is going to make the 53-man roster based on the confidence that I see regarding him oozing out of 49ers players like Trent Williams. And, let's take a look at what it would mean for him to make that 53-man roster, because it's certainly a really crowded situation. I'm going to make this wider so that everybody can look at the 90-man roster. 49ers today, by the way, made their cuts from 85 to 80. Sam Schluter gone. Tanner Hudson is gone. And Jeremiah Gemmel, the linebacker, is gone. So they're at 80 now. They didn't make 5 cuts because they moved Kalia Davis and Jason Verrett to injury lists as expected for the start of the season. So they no longer count against the overall limit, which is now 80 men. So next week, we will see the 49ers have to cut from 80 to 53. And the question is, will Jason Poe still be on the left side, on the inside of this picture? I have him right there, right behind Aaron Banks on the inside of this picture at the left guard position. I do think the 49ers will take 9 offensive linemen, and I do think that Poe is going to be that 9th offensive lineman. Right now, obviously, you have Trent Williams at left tackle, Banks at left guard, Jake Brendel at center, Spencer Burford at right guard, and Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. McKivitz is your swing tackle for the 49ers and he's at the moment, on Thursday, we're going to see him start the game because McGlinchey's currently hurt. We'll get more news on McGlinchey probably next week. Daniel Brunskill is going to make the team, even though he's currently hurt. He's, I think, going to be that 6th offensive lineman for the 49ers that they can plug and play anywhere. And then I believe that Jalen Moore will make the team, but Justin Skule won't. I also believe that guys like Nick Zakel and Donovan West are ideal practice squad candidates. And then the debate is 8 or 9 offensive linemen, because as you can see, it's a really crowded roster. You're going to have to make trade-offs elsewhere. Well, in the question of 8 or 9 offensive linemen, I say make it 9, and you bring in the guy that's really impressed everybody, and Jason Poe. Because if you look at the structure of this 49ers team, where they're truly weak is at the guard positions on the interior line. No more Laken Tomlinson. Daniel Brunskill currently hurt. Brunskill also competing for the center position. true freshman, Spencer Burford. I get it. I know, rookie. It's just a joke, but you got a true frosh playing right guard, almost certainly going to start there for the 49ers. A lot of questions, right, along that entire interior line. So you might as well beef up the depth behind it. And I think the 49ers might catch some teams by surprise with Jason Poe, the Lord of Leverage. So that's how it looks on the 53-man roster. That's how it would have to fit. I think they'd have to take 9 offensive linemen unless you don't take Jalen Moore on this team. But the tackle depth and the adaptability that you need, to be able to potentially replace Mike McGlinchey or Trent Williams if he goes down, that's so important. I get it. You have Colton McKivitz that could start doing that job. Maybe Daniel Brunskill can do it as well, just like he did back in 2019. But none of that, should be taken for granted, especially because Brunskill is also your top backup center. So I do think that you want a player like Jalen Moore on the roster, adaptable depth, and then Jason Poe. He's never going to play tackle in this league. But another thing is that carrying him as a 9th offensive lineman gives you the adaptability to do some crazy stuff. He could play that H-back role for you. The tight end coach, Brian Fleury, he can fight over him alongside Anthony Lynn, the running backs coach, and you could truly do some creative stuff if you're Kyle Shanahan. But in order for Poe to really in order for him to truly earn that roster spot, you can't just bring him aboard the 53-man roster to maybe play H-back in week 4 or, maybe give you 2 reps at tight end in week 7. You can't justify giving him a roster spot for that. He's got to deliver and be able to deliver at one of the actual offensive line spots. There's just too few spots for him to not be able to contribute in that regard. And that's why, him working at that left guard position for the 49ers, that's why, the faith they have in him to at least want to, test him out. And we'll see how they use him in this game on Thursday against the Houston Texans. But I think he's going to get significant run. I think he may get some run with the ones in that game. I think that it's a sign that they believe in him enough to be able to roll that dice, to say, hey, he can deliver enough on the interior of the offensive line. So we can carry him on this 53-man roster. We can trust this guy. He may not start, but he could be a weapon, and he's a unique weapon. And we always talk about Kyle Shanahan trying to zag while other teams are zigging. He's always bringing in body types at different positions that are unlike the body types of the counter positions that other teams are going to be using to cover or guard those guys or try to go up against those guys, right? Deebo Samuel is one of the most famous examples. Deebo Samuel, 220 pounds at wideout. Well, there's a reason why Deebo has basically set NFL records, made new NFL history as far as yards after the catch goes, because Deebo Samuel is a truck at the wide receiver position, and defensive backs have gotten smaller over the years. So, boom, Kyle Shanahan has found a comparative advantage. He's found a comparative advantage with George Kittle, runs a 4.5 40 at 245 pounds, maybe even 250 pounds. Guys aren't supposed to run that fast at that kind of weight, but then, boom, they struggle to tackle George Kittle. There's a comparative advantage. So you see where we're going with here. Even Juwan Jennings, in a way, is a comparative advantage for the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan because he plays slot receiver. Most slot receivers, right? We know slot receivers as little shifty guys. Well, the 49ers have decided to come out with the big slot, and that's Juwan Jennings, and they line up George Kittle in the slot as well because he's so adaptable. And all of a sudden, all these defenses that are used to taking on tiny slot receivers have to stare down at Juwan Jennings or George Kittle. That's what Kyle Shanahan's doing with this offensive adaptability. And it goes all the way back to when they signed Kyle Juszczyk in 2017. Everybody was wondering, why are they signing a fullback for that much money? Well, it's not because it's because he's not just a fullback. It's because Kyle Juszczyk was a slot wide receiver at Harvard, and he could, play in that slot. He could flex out outside. He could be at the running back position. Hell, he could even line up at quarterback for a sneak. But the guy can do all that at 240 plus pounds and give defenses matchup nightmares. Well, let's just extend that same thought process to Jason Poe, our Lord of Leverage, the guy that we're talking about here on this show. All of a sudden, defenses have to deal with an offensive lineman who's built completely differently than the type of offensive lineman that they're used to going up against. Instead of the big 6'5", 310-pounder, you've got a guy that might be 5'11", at 305 pounds. He's a fire hydrant that can move, a fire hydrant with wheels, right? And he could start really, I mean, I think Jason Poe would be an amazing defensive tackle, but the fact that he has the offensive techniques down makes him even more valuable, because at that offensive guard position in this offense, in this scheme, on this team where the skill set and the depth at guard is questionable right now as you're turning to the Trey Lance era after a couple departures, boy, this could be something really interesting. And then you factor in the, all of the H-back and all the permutations that Kyle Shanahan could potentially go to over the course of the regular season. So anyway, those of you just joining, I wrote about Jason Poe extensively. I've already done this a couple times. So I brought back one of those articles. I'm going to put it back up on the screen. Make sure you subscribe to The Athletic and check this piece out on Jason Poe, because this guy is the man of the hour. Trent Williams is glowing about him today at the 49ers facility. So that is in the comment section. I'm going to answer a few questions, maybe talk a little bit about practice today. Why don't we talk about practice today? Let's make a banner for this. Let's go all Allen Iverson. Let's talk about 49ers practice. And I'm going to erase 49ers because it's funnier if it just says, let's talk about practice right there. Yeah. Let's talk about practice. Trey Lance, the final open practice of this 2022 season, went 9 of 17. He was really accurate to start for like his first 8 or 9 throws today, but there were like 3 drops in there. So 49ers didn't help him out. Then he was a little further off during the red zone period, but he did throw a nice touchdown to George Kittle. But then there was an interception. George Odom. So George on George violence. George Odom on a ball that Trey Lance tried to loft up to George Kittle at the back of the end zone. George Odom just boxed out Kittle, got great position. Obviously, he's a smaller player than George Kittle. And Odom leapt up and picked off Trey Lance. It was Trey's 12th interception that we've seen so far this year at these practices, and the last one that we'll see at practice this season, since they'll be closed moving forward. But Odom, he's had a hell of a camp. I know they got him primarily for special teams, but especially now with Jimmy Ward hurt, with that safety position in a little bit of a tenuous spot. I mean, they had to bring in Tashawn Gibson the other day. They're hoping that he's going to give them some good reps on Thursday against the Texans. So you just look at Odom and you're happy that you have him on this football team. And, I've said this before. The one cool stat about him is he didn't miss a single tackle in the box last season for Indianapolis. So he's a steady-handed player. I don't know if he's been tested enough in coverage yet to entrust him with a Jimmy Ward-like roving free safety position. But the good news for the 49ers is that Talanoa Hufanga is growing in that robber safety role. I mean, I interviewed him. I talked to him. I shared the conversation with you guys in the locker room after the 49ers played the Packers. I mean, Hufanga was telling me about how just working with Troy Polamalu all offseason has gotten him adapted and acclimated into the instinctual part of that high safety, that robber role. It was a role that a lot of people were skeptical of Talanoa Hufanga playing at the NFL level, because he's not like dead straight line fast, right? He's the 4.6, maybe in 4.7 guy, probably 4.6, but he's not a burner. He's not a Tarvarius Moore around a 4.3 coming out of Southern Miss. Hufanga, to many people thought he'd be a closer to the line of scrimmage, instinctual player. He still is that. He can obviously do that. We saw a shark blitz from Talanoa Hufanga the other day, but I think he could be complete safety. And they're playing him in that robber position. And it's because even if you're only a 4.6 or even a 4.7 guy, if you're smart enough and you take, you could start stepping toward the ball sooner, you start moving sooner because you can see a play developing, you play like a 4.3 guy, right? A 4.3 guy could play like a 4.7 guy if he's not seeing the game, but a 4.6, 4.7 guy can play like a 4.3 guy if he does see the game. So there's the major delineation. And I think Talanoa Hufanga may not have that, insane speed, but he's got insane instincts, and training with Troy Polamalu, former USC alum, has certainly helped him do that in the off season. All right. So that's practice today. That was Odom intercepting Trey Lance. Nate Sudfeld had a couple nice throws downfield today. Brock Purdy getting less and less time as these practices go along. Like I could almost guarantee you right now, the 49ers are looking at it. Lance QB1 and Nate Sudfeld QB2. I think they want to sneak Brock Purdy through to the practice squad. That might get a little bit more complicated if Purdy plays really well again on Thursday against the Texans, but the 49ers just have to live with that because I think this roster, God, it just seems like it's too crowded to take 3 quarterbacks. Again, like I popped this open a little bit earlier. I could do it again. Let's go to the 49ers 90-man depth chart. I mean, let's make this big too across the screen. I mean, you just look at this. I have examples galore here. If I have the counter down here, by the way, 53. So if we move Purdy to the 53-man roster, all of a sudden we got 54. I mean, who do you cut? I don't think you cut Malik Turner because I think he's such a valuable gunner and he does so much of what you need to do on special teams. I already had to move tight end off just to fit Jason Poe today. So you're carrying 3 tight ends, Kittle, obviously, Werner, Ross Dwelly. I know Kyle's like to carry forward the pass, but he's not going to have that luxury, I think, this year. You could, scrap an offensive lineman, but this is one of the most valuable positions. So if you do, then maybe you take Jalen Moore out of the equation. But boy, I don't think the 49ers would do that. I had to move a defensive lineman out. As you notice here, Kerry Hyder right now is not on my projection. And that's I don't know if I'm that confident in the projection, to be honest, because I think they want to keep Hyder on this team. But as you can see, tough decisions are going to have to be made at some point. And this is Hyder's on the outside looking in, even with Purdy not on the roster, right? I just have this for argument's sake. Think you got to carry 5 linebackers for special teams. Flanagan Foles is the last one. And here you have the secondary where I have 9 bodies. I don't know who you cut loose. I mean, Ambry Thomas is hurt right now. He's trying to get back into the rotation. His injury is listed down here. I always forget some of these injuries. He's got a knee issue right now. So they said he'd be out for a few days on August 18th. It's August 23rd. So maybe back in time for Thursday. Shanahan's holding out hope. But as you can see, there's just like not a lot of wiggle room for the 49ers on this roster as I move Purdy back to the practice squad projection and then fix some of these lines that I messed up. But it's going to be tough decisions galore coming up for the 49ers in just a few days. So anyway, talking more about practice today. I mean, since it was that last open practice, I really appreciated the fact that it was just a long, grueling session from the 49ers. They did a lot of red zone. They did a lot of move the ball. They put 20 minutes up on the clock there at the end for the move the ball period. Guys were in their pads. Guys were playing hard. I mean, I don't think we're in the dog days anymore because, these games are now here to break up the monotony of camp. But it is August 23rd, and these guys have been grinding for close to a month now. It's been cool to watch the team congeal. The personality has developed. Guys are having fun on the sideline. Obviously, they've gone through some injuries, but they've played 2 games now, and I think the 49ers have a good, healthy vibe about them. Now, they're still, on the practice field, it's still very unique, I have to say. Jimmy Garoppolo is still out there throwing off on the side. And Daniel Brunskill, who's rehabbing right now from his hamstring injury, he was actually just chilling with Jimmy Garoppolo off on the side field while the 49ers are practicing, even like giving Jimmy Garoppolo a couple snaps because Brunskill's obviously a center as well, right? So it's just really surreal to be out there and be standing there. I look over, Jimmy Garoppolo is taking snaps from Daniel Brunskill on one side, and then I, tilt my head and I pivot and I see Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and Nate Sudfeld working on the other side with Chris Kasarik yelling at people. But in general, just super interesting vibes. You could think what you want about the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. At the end of the day, the 49ers are going to hold him until they can't hold him any longer. That's essentially how that's working, I think. I think that they have to decide if it's worth it for him to hold up a roster spot, which I don't think it is when you look at the spreadsheet that I just put up there. So August 30th would be the date at which Garoppolo would have to take up a roster spot to stay, a 53-man roster spot. And then his salary would become guaranteed on September 10th, which is the day before they play the Bears. So there's 2 trigger dates there, right? And I've always operated from the assumption that the 49ers are treating that first trigger date, the 53-man roster date as a very, very significant one regarding Garoppolo, because it's going to be tough to justify keeping him beyond then, given how deep the rest of this roster is. But, I mean, they could roll the dice. They could risk it a little bit. And I guess they're also treating Garoppolo as really expensive insurance, right? In case Trey Lance blows a knee or something, then you have him to turn to. But that is such an extreme case scenario that you can't really budget and plan around that contingency for too much longer. You could do it as long as holding Garoppolo has no downside, right? but at a certain point, holding Garoppolo is going to have some downside for the 49ers. And I think that starts in a week on August 30th if they decide to keep him on the 53 man. So what a story. Jason Poe, we're talking about him a little bit earlier. I'm going to toss that article into the comment section as well. For those of you watching later, I'll pin it up there at the top. I'm going to answer some questions now and encourage you all to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. It's also at Lombardi himself. Like this video and subscribe to this channel. And obviously subscribe to The Athletic. But, I mean, this is just so fun. We get to talk about Jason Poe. We get to talk about the 49ers on that practice field. It's all good stuff right now with a week to go until the 49ers have to cut down to 53. California Bear asks, thoughts on Sermon's performance so far? I mean, so far he hasn't picked up any yardage. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow in my game preview that I hope that you guys check out on The Athletic in the morning. But Trey Sermon has 19 yards on 11 carries, and he's been running against the better defenders that the 49ers have seen in these preseason games. So, for example, Jordan Mason's been running against third stringers, usually in the second half of these games. Sermon has been not behind the first team offensive line for the 49ers because Williams hasn't even played, Big Trent. And it doesn't look like he's had all too much room. I thought that he was a little hesitant on one of the runs to the outside against the Vikings the other day. And then he dropped that pass right over the middle that would have moved the chains. So it hasn't been a good start for Trey Sermon to the preseason games. He's been a lot better in the actual practices. Games are important for running backs, though, more than any other position probably, because tackling to the ground doesn't happen in practice. And I would like to see him shake a few more tacklers. And, you know, I answer this holistically. 49ers are going to toss out as much of their first team offensive line as they can in this game on Thursday. They're not going to be able to have Mike McGlinchey because he's hurt, but they're going to have Trent Williams out there, right? They're going to have Jake Brendel out there at the center position. Maybe even some Poe in there, right? With that first team. But they're going to have obviously Aaron Banks, and then at right guard, you're going to see Spencer Burford. That unit collectively, all five, and maybe we just say 4 or 5 because McKivitz is going to be there instead of Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. But that unit is going to have its chance to block for the 49ers stable of running backs. So for the first time, we're going to get to see Trey Sermon try to run behind a line that includes Trent Williams. And I want to see Jordan Mason, who's only been running in the second half. I want to see him behind Trent Williams too. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see a fair comparison of all the running backs, and hopefully we get to see that on Thursday. I'm having a Merlot or two tonight. I haven't had anything to drink tonight. Maybe in a little bit. I got to get a burrito after I'm done with this. Shout out to anybody who's drinking watching the show, though. That's great. I mean, it's 7:41 p.m. You're allowed to do it's past 5 o'clock here, and it's any excuse you need, even if you're in like Tokyo or something where the time is. What time is it in Tokyo right now? Why don't we look this up? It's going to be like the next day or 2 days away from now, Tokyo time. So if you're in Tokyo, it's 11:41 a.m. But rest assured, it's 7:41 p.m. in California. So, and 10:41 p.m. on the East Coast. You can have your drink while you're watching the show. Yeah, 10:41 on the East Coast. Okay, cool stuff. I'm smoking. It's funny. What's the possibility that Poe makes the 53? I think it's really high. I haven't projected on my 53-man roster. I'm going for it. I think Jason Poe has earned a spot on this team. Now, again, there's still a week before the cut down, and there's still like 24 days. No. 19 days. 19 days before the season opener. So a lot can still develop. But so far, Jason Poe has shown, I mean, he's won over that 49ers locker room. I'll tell you that much. So I think the chances he makes the team are high. Beating out Banks, that's a different story. I see Poe as more of a weapon for the 49ers, especially using some run situations because, this team likes to run the ball, that eventually might be able to develop into a starting offensive lineman. But I always say you need depth in that O-line room. 5 is not going to cut it. So is Poe going to be one of your 9, one of your 8? One of your 9, I think he's got to be one of your 9. Question is, do they take 9? Because, if it's only 8, they may have to go heavier on tackle. But I think it's likelier than not that Poe makes the team. And if he doesn't, hey, practice squad, and flex him up when you need him, because I think that he's a guy that you have to play the guys that you flex up every week, right? You don't just flex the guy up, one of the two you flex up, and not play him. I think Poe's going to contribute to this team, though, in 2022. How exactly it's going to happen, I can't tell you. That's why I cover this, though. We're going to continue kind of analyzing how this moves forward. Yep, John says all of the backup linemen can play multiple positions. That's you got to have that in the NFL. You have to have that. I'm not so sure that Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, guys. You're falling for the same here. I'll put this up on the screen. I understand the sentiment because, you haven't seen Jimmy play in a while. And the last time you saw Jimmy, he was playing with 2 injuries. And Brock Purdy's playing against third stringers. Listen, Brock is extremely impressive to me. But there's a difference between impressing in a preseason game and impressing in actual games and taking a team to the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl. Brock can develop into that. I mean, I like a lot of what Brock brings to the table, but we can't just go out and be reckless and say that he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now as the final pick in the draft. Yeah, all the media seem to be praising Poe. I've been praising him since the 49ers signed him. So I'll just take kind of credit for being at the front of this train. He deserves the praise. And he deserved the praise when I wrote that first piece about him. And it was already about like 3 months ago because of, how far he's come as an underdog. I mean, he trained with Trent Williams this offseason, which is really cool. Trent took him and Spencer Burford under his wing. And what's really neat is that both of those guys now, are hot commodities, right? Burford has taken every single first team rep at right guard. It's one of those situations where Trent Williams means a lot to the 49ers. I mean, he is the man. I mean, this guy on the field, off the field, as far as leadership, you saw him talking in that press conference. He is the benefits, and the 49ers are getting dividends out of their investment into Trent Williams. All right, cool, guys. 36 minutes of talking about Jason Poe. I have to go eat now. It's already 7:45 p.m. So everybody, sub to the Athletic, check out that article on Jason Poe that I put up on the screen. I'm going to run, maybe back a little bit later, but it was good having you tonight. There's a lot to talk about in 49ers land. Everybody take care. Thanks again.